Good morning. Welcome back to Financial Issues. I'm Dan Seeley. It's great to be here this morning. It's Hump Day. Wednesday, a couple more days, short week next week, Christmas. Lots of good things going on. Not a whole lot going on in the economy. Not a lot of volume in the markets. We did get some very interesting news come out this morning, so let me mention that to you real quick. By the way, yesterday, all the major indices finished in negative territory, so the Dow was down 9, not a big deal. But basically, everybody's waiting for the Fed today. Will he taper? Will he not? It looks like I'm going to be wrong, according to everybody else. I said there's about a 40% chance that he will taper in December. In other words, I don't really think it's going to happen, and I've said that. But I am slowly becoming, this week, a lone wolf in that camp, but I'm sticking to it. And if he does taper, it's not going to be much. We're talking maybe $10 billion. Will the taper, will the printing presses ever stop is probably the bigger question. It's never going to stop. They're going to continue to add assets. They may redefine it. They may talk about it as something else, but it is not going to stop. As long as we continue the out of control spending, as long as we have revenues every year that cannot meet our spending, as long as we continue to add things to that permanent spending, such as Obamacare, when we have now over 20 million people unemployed, another 14 million or so underemployed, it's never going to stop. So the question is, is the Fed going to exit this policy? No, he's not. But will he taper? Maybe. If he goes from 85 to 75 to 70, somewhere in that range, today, not a big deal in the markets. We're not going to see a triple digit gains by any stretch of the imagination. And we could even see a negative day today. But if the traders and if the market doesn't have at least 10 billion in cut factored in, something's really wrong. And if, in fact, that it is negative in a big way today, if they do cut, if they announce a cut, then we've got bigger, and it's just 10 billion or so, we've got bigger problems than I think we have. Anyway, so the market's slightly down yesterday and, will open, there looks like they're going to open positive this morning. But the question being is, where they're going to last. I guess the announcement's going to be made, I'm not sure, but it's usually around 2:30. Usually 2 o'clock, I think, is when they start. So we'll see how the market ends, because that's going to be the key. But the big news, some good news, is housing starts. The housing numbers came out. Remember, I told you Monday that there's going to be an enormous amount of news coming out in reference to housing this week, and I wasn't going to report on all of it. The housing starts was one that I said I would report, and the housing starts up 22% in November to 1.09 million housing starts. Now, and that's good news. I mean, no matter how you shake it, that's good news. I mean, when we can have housing starts, it means that we're looking at a construction housing sector that believes that spring of 2014, you're building now for spring of 2014 sales, are going to be very strong. I hope they're right. But the real good news in the number, which I haven't heard, I'm sure somebody's talking about it, but the real good news in the number is the fact that single family homes were up 20.8%. Now, you probably don't remember this, but last month, maybe you do, when I talked about this number, I said, single family homes, I don't remember. I'm thinking it was about 11%. Single family home starts were up. I said 11% is not a big deal. This is all multifamily stuff. Well, now we've got single families at 20%. That's a huge increase. And that is a much better outlook for housing, and maybe a better indicator for the economy. Maybe. Anyway, that's what it's looking. That's what the big number is today. Permits issued dropped 11.5% on multifamily. dropped 11.5%. So I think that's good news because I've been talking about the glut that is happening intentionally in multifamily housing. So it's good to see that slowing down because, we can't, the last thing that the construction industry and the housing markets can afford is us putting more inventory. 866-300-9298. We're going to take your questions. We'll stay with the phones. 866-300-9298 if you want to queue up your call. By the way, yesterday I had a conference call with our partners, some of our partners. We went till 2:30. We went basically an hour and a half, 2:30 Eastern time. We started 12 o'clock. We went till 1:30. So we had a long conference call. It was a great time. I had over 400 people on the call, which is incredible. And nobody dropped. Everybody stayed with us for the hour and a half. So I just say that if you're a partner, I remind you to check that website. Check the website out of financialissues.org. Make sure that you know the next date. Next year in January, early January sometime, we're going to do an evening seminar. I'm going to talk about my investment strategy on an evening conference call. So that's not something you're going to want to miss. Everybody will be able to be there. We'll be spending about an hour and a half in the evening. We're going to start at 7 o'clock Central Time, and we'll probably go about an hour and a half. Should be interesting. That's 8 o'clock Eastern Time. I go brain dead about 7. I've already, by 7 o'clock, I've already been up and going for about 15 hours, so 14 hours. So I'm just, I can't believe I'm doing this in the evening. So it ought to be interesting. But you can check that out, and I'll let you know as we get closer to that time. 866-300-9298. A couple things you might find on my Facebook page. Facebook, it's Financial Issues is my Facebook page. I talked about the fact that Iran now reveals its details, even showing a picture of its shoulder-fired missile launchers. Iran still ramping it up. No big deal. No big deal. Senator Kerry, I'm certain, can talk him out of this. We don't need to show any kind of show of strength or anything like that. He'll talk him out of it because that's what we do now. In the government, we talk them out of it. We negotiate with terrorists. I mean, that's okay. So he'll talk him out of it eventually, but that's just thought I'd throw that out there because it says that countries all around there's a little uneasiness. Yeah, do you think? So you got Saudi Arabia, Israel, again, seeing some more uneasiness in that based on this new technology that they apparently have. There's a lot of talk, and you heard it here first, folks. You heard my rant first on the fact that Paul Ryan's budget negotiation, compromise, surrender, whatever you want to call it. I'd rather call it just another Republican enabling session and an opportunity to run the white flag of surrender up. And I was on a rant over military benefits. Now they've even decided not to exempt the cuts that pensions from our military men and women are going to receive. They're not even exempting disabled military retirees. They're not going to exempt them. There was a chance they were. This is the bill, by the way, that Paul Ryan and Patty Murray put together. And unfortunately, they're still together talking about now further cuts. They're talking about the debt ceiling. Look, we don't need any more compromise deals. But this is what we got. This is the conservative, the next Ronald Reagan, as it was said when he came into the Senate, to the House of Representatives, Paul Ryan. I even said it. But we compromised on this deal. We're going to cut the military pensions of our men and women that are laying their blood on the line. That's what our $23 billion savings over 10 years is going to be on the backs of our military men and women. And I'm just furious over it. You heard, I got a ton of email, and I thank you for all that over the first time we talked about when the deal first revealed that may be on the table. And I said then, these guys need to look in the stinking mirror. You want to cut in pensions? I got to cut in pensions. How about you got to serve at least 2 terms before you get a pension? How about you get a pension from the highest place you serve? Paul Ryan will likely go from the Congress, from the House of Representatives, get a pension, to the Senate, get a pension. Maybe he goes to the vice presidency, get a pension. Maybe he goes to the presidency, he'll get a pension. He could have the potential for 4 or 5 pensions before his career's over. But that's okay. We're not going to touch that. We're not going to look at that. And it's interesting because we're giving the liberals another $65 billion to spend in this budget deal. It's been passed, by the way, this budget deal. We're saving $23 billion, which is a spit in the bucket, over 10 years. And Colburn comes out with every year he writes these little things of ridiculous things we're spending money on. And this year he comes out with $60 billion in savings on ridiculous things that nobody even realizes that are in there. And we're cutting, that's $60 billion, and we're cutting our military men and women. Now, of course, the ideology from the compromising, spineless Republicans is flowing in nicely to the ideology of the liberals in the sense that it's not about military might. It's not about peace through strength. It's not about having the most powerful military in the world so that we might protect our shores and have peace, maybe throughout the world because of our military might. It's not about that. It's about compromising even with the enemy. It's about we can negotiate. We can talk. You guys can't even negotiate who you're going to go to lunch with. But we have a mentality now that we're going to negotiate with our enemies. And that is far cheaper, saving money so that we can spend it on other ridiculous things so that we don't have to build up our military and even take care of those that have laid their blood on the line. And now our disabled veterans who have laid, in many cases, their minds and their limbs back on the battlefield. And these cuts are going to affect their pensions too. This is more pathetic confirmation of the ineptness, the lack of leadership, the lack of capability, and the cluelessness of our politicians. It's pathetic. And if any of these guys get reelected, any of them get reelected, shame on you. You think Paul Ryan's going to get reelected in Wisconsin? Count on it. Count on it. You think, most of these, 70% of them are probably going to get reelected. So shame on all of us that continue to do that. It's pathetic. 866-300-9298, folks. We are going to take your calls, believe it or not. I had to get that out of my system. I feel better. 866-300-9298 if you want to weigh in. You're listening to American Family Radio, Financial Issues. Listen, when we get back, we'll go to the phones. And I'm going to urge you once again for our campaign when we get back. Then we're going to go to the phones. You're listening to Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. We'll be right back.